Hi, this is Michelle Reyes with Marion Audubon, and tonight we're going to learn how to keep track of our life list. We're going to learn how to report the birds that we see and find new birds that you've never seen before. We're going to do all of this using the free eBird app for our phone. Now, before we really get into how to use the app, I think we should go back a little bit in time and talk about how things used to be. So before we had smartphones in our pockets, people would go out birding with a field guide, which is quite thick, even just for the eastern part of North America, and some kind of notebook where we could write down all of the birds that we see, notes about where we are and what day it is. And some people would even make sketches of the birds and then go back and try to identify them. But now we have all of this stuff in our pocket. And I would say having a journal and writing down all of the birds that you see, while it does make for a really fun way to kind of look back and look at the memories and remember all of the great birding trips you had. If I asked someone who birds like this, how many birds did you see last month? It's going to take them a little while to figure that out. And then if I said, well, how many did you see last month just in Marion County? That's going to take even longer. So, but I can just use, because I've been birding with the eBird app from day one, I can look back and I can tell you exactly how many birds I saw in 2020 or in Marion County in 2019, or all of the different kinds of data that you could possibly ask me, I would be able to pull out just from the eBird website or the app, which is pretty incredible. And
has the largest assortment of vinyl, wood, aluminum, chain link.
Let's make sure all of our microphones are muted, please. So the most important thing it's going to tell you is our life list. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's the number of birds that you've seen in your life. And that's a really important number for a lot of us who like to keep track of our stats and just the birds that we see. So this is a great way that you can just basically push like one or two buttons and always have your life list right there. And the great thing about eBird too is that as you're submitting your list of birds, you're building your life list automatically. And at the same time, you're contributing to science, because the data that you submit is used by ornithologists and researchers to learn about things like population changes and migration patterns and things like that. To use the eBird app, you're first going to download it and either sign in or sign up. If you already have a Merlin account for like Merlin Bird ID or an account with eBird on the web, you use the same sign in and password because all three of those work together. Then you'll have to install a bird pack, and this is by state for the eBird app. So we're just going to download the Florida pack since that's where we are. But if we are going to be traveling to different states, we'll want to download the bird pack for that state before we leave. All right. Let's pretend that we are birding and we're at a park. I was going to pull up, let me show, hang on. I'm going to share my screen with you and show you something. One second. Sharing. Okay. So let's pretend we're at the park and we see this bird. Now, I know a lot of us probably know what this bird is, but even if you didn't, the easiest way to figure out what bird this is would be to go to the Merlin Bird ID app. And actually last month, we did a video to explain how to use this app in great detail. So if you are unsure about that, then you can just go back to our YouTube channel and watch that video, and that'll explain all the ins and outs of using Merlin Bird ID, which you can ID birds just by a description, a photo, or even just by sound. So for this video tonight, we're just going to assume that you know how to identify birds. So when we go to start our checklist, we will go to here we are. So the eBird app is that second icon on my screen where it says eBird. So I'm going to tap on that. And hang on one second, I have to get out of this screen. Okay. All right, so we're at the park. We just found a white ibis. We know what it is because we used Merlin ID to ID it. Now we're going to start the checklist, but before we begin, I just want you to notice that it does already know the date and the time that we're starting, and it's also going to record a track. If we're traveling, like we're walking or driving, it's going to actually keep track of how far we travel and even lay like a little map that you can look back and see where exactly you walked. So we're going to hit start checklist. Oh, my screen keeps moving, changing. Okay. All right, so we've started our checklist. Now you're going to notice there's little icons next to a lot of the birds, like a little colored dot. And this indicates the frequency of sightings in our area. If there is no icon, then that means that they are frequent or abundant. An orange half circle means it's less common, and a red dot means it's uncommon or unreported. An orange box with an R means that it's either rare or an unusually high number. For these, you're going to need to add a very detailed description of the bird and preferably a photo. By the way, if you come across one of these rare birds, shoot us an email. We would like to see it too. Now let's tap the 3 lines at the very bottom. This is a way that you can change the sort, and we're going to change it to smart sort. And you'll see that all of the most likely birds pop up to the very top, which makes it much easier to do your birding and figure out what bird you're most likely looking at. Now we can tap the first line that says add observation at the very top. And we can just start typing in white ibis, or you can even just type ibis. And it's going to show you just what birds match that. So then we can tap the plus sign on the left side of white ibis, and it's going to add 1. Now, if you see another white ibis later, all you have to do is tap the 1 and it'll add 1 each time that you tap. If you see 20, you can tap the word white ibis, and then you can type in 20. And then done. Now, there are 2 other ways that you can input birds. Let's say that we saw 3 mourning doves. We can actually type the number first. So we type in 3, and then we can start typing in mourning dove, MOU, and then already it pops up. You just tap the name, and now it's added 3 mourning doves to our list. And this also works the same way to add additional. So let's say we saw 9 more doves. We can type 9 and then MOU and then tap mourning dove. Now it shows that we have 12. So it added the 3 and the 9 together. The last way that you can add birds is by an alpha code. Now this is the way that I prefer to do it because for me it's the quickest. I can type 4 letters faster than a whole name. So these 4-letter codes are based on bird names. If the bird's name is one word, you use the first 4 letters of the word. So for a mallard duck, we would type in M-A-L-L because it's just a one word bird. So we can tap 1. If we're looking at a northern cardinal, we would tap N-O for northern and C-A for cardinal. And tap 1. If it's Marty, are you able to silence the other microphones? If the bird name has a 3-word name, like a great blue heron, you would use the first letter of each word and then the second letter of the 3rd word. So great blue heron would be G-B-H-E. And then for a 4-word name, you would use the first letter of each word. So for black belly whistling duck, it would be B-B-W-D. So that is how you input birds for your list. Now I'm going to go back. Okay, now at the very bottom left, you'll see a little plus symbol. That's where you can tap if you want to add a, oops. That's where you tap to add any checklist comments. So if you want to add anything about the day, if you want to add the weather, like it's sunny and 75, or I like to use it to write in non-bird sightings, like if I see a bear or a butterfly or something like that. A lot of people never add any comments. It's totally up to you. The other symbol at the bottom is a check mark with the number of species that you've already added to your list. It's also a quick sort button. So if you tap that 6 and check mark, it's going to show just the birds that are on your list that you've indicated that you saw. If you tap it again, it will again show you all of the list of possibilities. Before I stop a list, I review it with all the possible birds showing so that as I scroll through, if I see a bird that I missed, like, oh, I saw an anhinga, then you can just tap the anhinga and keep on moving. When I'm done with that, I hit the stop button in the bottom right, stop track, and our checklist is in. Now we just need to do the finalizing part here. So we'll start from the top. We're going to choose a location. So we'll tap that. It uses the GPS in my phone to know exactly where I started the list, and it maps my path as I walk. eBird wants us to use the closest hotspot that makes sense. This will keep all of the data for the park in one place. If you're birding somewhere without a hotspot, you can just use the GPS coordinates that automatically come up, or you can give a location a name. If you're birding your yard, I'd suggest setting up a yard list. The nearby tab that you see at the top, which says recent and nearby, those will pull up, like the recent will be the other locations that you've been at recently. Nearby will be the hotspots that are nearby you. There's another way you can input your list. If you see the green magnifying glass towards the middle of the screen, if you tap that, you can type in any park. So we'll type in Silver Springs State Park, and it's going to pull up the hotspot. But you can see here quite a few of the blue pins, and you can zoom in and zoom out by pinching like the screen with 2 fingers and either bringing your fingers closer together or spreading them out to zoom in or zoom out. But what you can see here is there's multiple little blue pins. The solid blue pins are kind of personal locations or not hotspots. The hotspot is the blue one with the fire, like the white fire kind of symbol right in the middle. So that's really what you want to use as long as you were actually birding in that vicinity. You want to use that hotspot. So we'll tap that, use this location. Next, we're going to choose the observation type, and Right here, it shows stationary. If we tap that, it shows us the 3 types up at the top. We're not going to use any of the ones that are below the line, but this is pretty much done for you. If you're in one spot and you stay in one spot, it's automatically going to say stationary like it does right now. If you're walking or driving, it will show traveling along with the distance and your track. I should mention the distance should be one way. If you travel a loop trail, your mileage should be correct automatically. But if you did an out and back trail, you should reduce the distance by half. You also want to make sure that you don't double count birds. So on my way back, I'll only count new birds or adjust my numbers if I see more than I did the first pass. For instance, if I saw only 1 eastern bluebird on my way out, but I saw 3 on my way back, I would submit 3 on my list, which is the maximum number that I saw in one pass. By the way, if you forget to stop your checklist before driving home, which has happened to me, you can just tap the map icon to edit your track. The third type is incidental. We'll use this if birding was not our primary activity. So if we see a bird while we're outside doing yard work or as a passenger in a car, you can use the incidental. Ignore all of the others below this line. We will not be using those. If you're birding with a friend, you'll see where it says observers and then there's a person icon. You can tap that icon for however many people are in your group. And then you can tap the button that says sharing and you just type in either their eBird username or the email address that they use for their eBird account. And once you submit this, it's actually going to send an email to your friend. And then when they accept it, either through the email or on the eBird website, this list that you created will be added to their eBird account. They can also make adjustments to the list by going to the eBird website. They'll click on My eBird and then complete checklists to see that particular list. So let's say you saw an eagle, but they didn't. They're going to want to select the list, scroll down to the eagle, and there's a little trash icon right next to each bird. So they're going to want to hit that delete button right next to the eagle, and that'll remove it from their account, but it'll stay on everyone else's list. And the same thing is if they saw a bird that you didn't see, they can actually add the species using a blue edit button at the top of the checklist. So now you know how to create and submit a checklist. Now let's check out your life list. Oh, I think I forgot to mention where it says, are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you are able to identify? You're always going to click yes on that because it's just saying you don't have to know all of the birds that you see, but as long as you identify the birds that you are able to, then you click yes. No would mean that you're intentionally ignoring some species that you know what they are. We're not going to do that. So then you would just hit the green submit button. So I'm going to back out of here for a second, and we're going to talk about our life list. So if you tap on My eBird, which is on the very bottom right-hand side, it's going to show you your life list, but this is limiting us right now to Marion County. So what you can see here is that I've seen 210 species, and then it shows that I've submitted 704 checklists so far. And for 2022, I've seen 121 species, which is more than I've seen through February of any other year. So it's showing you all the different years. The number on the left is year to date. The number on the right is the total for the entire year. So for 2021, I had seen 72 species by now and finished the year with 193 species. The next section just shows stats for the current month. So far, I've seen 60 birds, and in 2021, I had seen 59 birds by now, and I finished the month with 94 species. If you tap the 3 buttons in the top right, you can quickly switch between looking at your state life list, your US or world life list. Now, if a bird shows up and I'm not sure if I've seen it, which happened very recently with the Iceland gull that was seen, I can go to my world list. So I'll tap on world. And then I can tap on the species, the total number of species, and it's going to tell me all of the birds on my life list. It takes a minute. And then if I hit the search hourglass magnifying glass symbol, I can type in Iceland. Whoops, Iceland. And I see that, yes, it's on my life list. And if I tap it again, I touch the Iceland Gall word. Now it tells me that all the different places I've seen it in my life, which is pretty cool to see. So I can see that I've seen it in 2 different states. So now let's learn how to find birds that we've never seen before. At the bottom, you're going to tap the button that says Explore. And this is going to show us, let's see, let me pop out here. This is going to show us, it should automatically set up for all of the birds that have been seen within the last 30 days within a 30-mile radius of you. So you can see here that there are 173 different species that have been seen in the last month within 30 miles of me, which is pretty exciting. And then if you look at the number to the right where it says 12 targets, those are birds that I have not seen in the county. So if you tap that, it'll show you the different birds that would be my target birds that I could go after. The only tricky thing with this, though, is that these birds are based on the birds that are within just the geographical 30-mile radius from you. It doesn't take into account the different counties. So while it looks really exciting that there's 12 birds that I can go after, almost all of these, if I tap on them and see, like Alhambra, that when I tap on it shows it. If you look at the very top, it says Alhambra Way Pond. Right underneath it, it says Sumter, US. So that's in a different county. So that doesn't count for my Marion County birds. But if you're just looking for birds that are nearby that you've never seen, this is a great way to do it. Then you'll also see the 293 hotspots are within this 30-mile radius. And if you tap on unvisited, that gives you an idea of like, hey, there might be some really good birds in these places and no one has gone to go check on them. So this might be a good place to start if you're wanting to go check out some new places. This will give you some ideas and maybe you'll see some really cool birds there. You can also change the parameters here. If you go to the edit button in the top right-hand side, you can change it to maybe a radius of only 10 miles. Maybe you don't feel like driving that far. And you want to look at just birds that have been seen in the last week. And then you can change your target species from Marion to, you can change it to the whole state of Florida, or this would be my Florida life list. And I have to. Oops. There, I have 0 targets. But you can just see how it changes you can change the radius, the time period, and which life list you're looking at. And then now if you actually swipe up, because it looks like that's all there is, but if you swipe up, you actually can see target species, a needs alert, a rare bird alert, and the top 100 eBirders. And each of these have a drop-down box where you can change it to Florida instead of Marion. And so these are just other fun things that you can use to explore, especially looking for rare birds. If you're interested in that, you can do that for the state of Florida, and then you can travel to see all kinds of things that are showing up. And if you're really competitive, you can look at the top 100 eBirders for Marion or for Florida or, oops, or for Florida or for the world even. So that is basically how you use the eBird app. This is just a fraction of the data that you can pull up. If you go to the eBird website, it has so much more. I've been using eBird for 6 years now, and I'm still discovering new ways to access and use the data that is available on there. So does anyone have any questions? Oops. Trying to come back. Okay. All right. So if you have a question, you guys can go ahead and unmute yourself and just ask.
How can I add birds that I've already seen to my life list?
That is a good question. I don't have the information here in front of me, but I do have a link to instructions on how to do that. It would basically be a historical list that you would be doing. And if you have the specifics as far as where you were and what day and all of that, then you can actually just enter those in the app, because you can change the date and the time just by right before we hit start checklist. You can tap on the date or the time to change those. So if you have that information, you can go ahead and enter it in the app. If you don't, you can go onto the eBird website and enter them as a historical list. And I will add the link for the instructions on how to add a historical list to our YouTube channel when we post this. I'll add that in the comments.
So it's just YouTube, Marion Audubon?
If you search on YouTube for Marion Audubon, yes.
Okay,
Michelle,
thank you.
Yes.
it's Alice. Hi. How did you come up with the alpha code on your checklist? Were you doing alpha code? Can you get it on the checklist? Because that's so much easier for me too. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
The alpha codes are based on banding codes.
But I
So
mean,
those are,
I know the alpha codes. I'm wondering how I can get it on the checklist to add the birds. It just will pull it up if you start to the 4 letters.
yes, if you just type in, like for Northern Cardinal, if you just type in NOCA,
Yeah,
it pops it up.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Didn't know that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, got one more.
Okay.
When I do the bird walks and I have to do a checklist for our group, I do the checklist, or somebody will do the checklist for me at that in that vicinity. And is there any way I can share that list with somebody who is not on eBird without having to retype the whole thing on a different list? I've tried, and I think it doesn't work, because then they'd have to remove all those because they're not on their list. It's just somebody who's submitting the list to the club. What I'm saying, I tried to copy, that doesn't work well.
Well, you're sharing it with someone who doesn't use eBird?
Who just want to share the list. Yes, they don't need to add it to their list because they don't have a list. They're not doing eBird. I just wanted to see if I could share what I have found that day to be reported.
Well, you can, let's see, you can share it. Well, the ways to share the list are within the app to their eBird username or website or email address.
Yeah.
You can also, if you forget to do it at the time, you can go back to your checklist on the eBird website and share it. Well, you can copy it or you can share it through there. If you just want to send them a copy of it and not have it go to their eBird account, even in the app, when you pull up your completed checklists, submitted checklists, you can tap, there's a an option to tap share, I believe.
Okay,
But it's, or a copy or something like email. I think it's email.
okay,
Um,
okay.
And it'll, I've used that just to use to make like a list that I can
Yes.
send to everybody,
I'll try
showing
that.
the different birds that we've seen or the number of species.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Michelle, this is Stephanie. While you were talking, I started to add on the checklist a few birds that I know I'd seen. And then I went back to my eBird and said 0 species. It didn't add them. So I'm missing some step.
Okay. Did you submit the checklist?
Oh, no, I guess not.
Okay. Yeah, it won't add it until you've finalized the checklist altogether. And then once you hit submit, it'll show up there pretty fast.
And where is that? The submit.
Submit is
Oh,
like
the button down there on the
Yes.
bottom left. Okay. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Stephanie, I have both the Martin, the Merlin bird and the eBird loaded. When do I use one versus the other?
Yes.
Well, Merlin is to identify birds. So you see a bird, but you're not sure what it is. That's when you use Merlin. eBird is simply to submit checklists and you to look at your life list or to look for a park that you might want to go check.
That's all we need.
Okay. Do they communicate with each other and the birds you see in one are restored in the other?
They do communicate with each other. So if you've put birds into eBird and submitted those checklists, when you pull up a bird on Merlin, it's gonna say whether or not you've seen that bird before. Like it'll have at the very bottom, like on your field guide part of Merlin, at the bottom, it'll have a check mark and say life list if it's a bird that you've submitted through eBird.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
These people are birders, village birders. This one, this one. I know off the top of my head. Who's hosting?
Any other questions?
No, she's probably finished presentation. This is just questions. Speaker. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions, we can do kind of a practice quiz if you want. If you want to participate, you can go to your eBird, go to the eBird app, click on My eBird and see how many life birds you have. And then find out what was the last bird that you added to your life list. See if you can remember how to do that.
Let's see. Jeez. My life list. Jesus, my life list. Shoot. That's gonna do it.
I'm going to share my screen again and walk you through it just to make sure everyone has. is getting it. So for me to look at my life list, I'm going to go to My eBird at the bottom right hand side. And then if if I'm talking about my entire life list, I would, because right now it defaults to Marion County. So on the right-hand side, you see 3 dots. I'm going to
Yeah.
tap that
Okay.
and then change it to world. So I have 1,270 species. If I tap that, it's going to give me the whole list. And then it's already sorting it to the most recent first. So for me, the purple sandpiper was the last life bird that I added, and that was like 2 weeks ago. And then on the bottom right-hand side, there's 3 lines. That's another sort button. So if you tap that, it'll sort it. You can do ascending, and it's going to show you, like, the very first bird that I ever recorded was the American coot in 2015.
Species list.
Do you guys want to try a different question?
Yeah, I'm not getting, this is Stephanie again. I'm still not figuring out. It's not working. And I keep not knowing which screen to. So
you're in the eBird app.
yeah, let's start from the very beginning. So okay, so I go to my eBird and it says 0 species.
Okay, because you
So-
haven't submitted a list yet, right?
Right. So then what do I do? Go to the checklist?
Well, you to submit a checklist, yes, you would go to checklists.
All right, no, to add a bird. Let's just add 1 bird.
Okay, so to do a checklist, of course, mine is in the middle of this, so let me start it over. Okay, so when you start the app, it will look like this. And you have the date, the time, and then the start checklist button. So if you are entering a historical list, you can change the date by just tapping it, and it gives you a calendar, and you can even tap like the year and go
Okay.
back. The time as well, you can tap the time and change the time that you start the list. And then you hit start checklist. And from there, you can start typing in the birds. At the very top, it says add observation or find species. So you can tap that and start typing in a bird. Or you can scroll through the list and tap and find the bird and hit the plus sign, and that'll add 1 bird for every time you touch the screen. It's going to add 1 bird.
Right. Then what? That's
So
where
then, okay, on the bottom right-hand side, you see the green check mark on my screen,
Yeah.
like in the keypad.
Yes.
I would hit that, and then it gives me the stop button in the bottom right.
Okay.
I hit stop
Yeah.
track. And then this is where we do the finalizing. So we choose our location. We choose whether it's an incidental checklist or traveling or stationary. And then we hit continue and submit.
Where's the submit? No, that didn't come up for me.
Well,
Submit.
once you select your location, it'll say submit. Once you fill the rest of this out. So we'll choose a location and we'll just,
Oh, I see.
so we'll say that, see, and now it says submit because it wasn't ready until you have all of this information filled in.
Okay. And then I go back to my eBird and it still says 0 species.
It might need a little bit of time to catch up. It's usually pretty fast. But
Well, no, it's funny. If I tap on it, it goes over to the one bird that I just added. But if I go back to it, it still says 0. That's kind of weird. Maybe maybe it just hasn't caught up.
So you hit submit.
Oh,
For that
now
one
now
bird?
it's now it's there. Now it's there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Do you guys want to, let's try one other quiz. Let's see how many birds are within 30 miles in that 30-mile diameter radius of you that you have not seen within your county. So how many birds are within 30 miles of you that you have not seen yet? And to do that, we're going to hit explore at the bottom. I'm going to change at the very top right-hand side. I'm going to hit edit so I can change it to 30 miles within the last 30 days. And I'm going to change my target list to my Marion life list. I hit save. And then to get this box to go away, you can either swipe it or hit the map behind it. And so I have 12 targets.
Okay, that's interesting.
And for me, I really like this number of under the hotspots where it says unvisited hotspots. So these are all places that have not been birded in the last month. So to me, anything could be found in these places. So these are places that I would like to go check out because who knows what could be there. And I've used this too when I'm in town or something and I have a little bit of spare time. I'll pull this map up and I'll look like, okay, what's, within a reasonable distance where I can just go birding for, a half an hour or something.
See.
Are there any questions about this part? The explore.
This one's. Okay, gotcha. Ooh. Wow.
Could
Okay.
you,
So, I'm sorry.
a quick question, could you quickly go over how you say there's an area that is to be birded and see what the sightings have been, whatever, in the last week?
Yes. So you can look at the locations. Let me try to get this part to go back. So let's see. So specifically for a location or for where a bird has been found that you might want?
Just say we're going to do a bird walk and get a feel for what's been seen in that area recently.
Okay, at that particular hotspot.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you can, right underneath the map, there is like a green box that shows a bird head and then a search bar next to it. If
Yes.
you tap that, so right now it's looking at species, but if you tap that bird's head, it changes to location symbol. Did you see that?
Yes, yeah.
So now you can actually tap on the search bar there and you can type in
Wow.
a hotspot. So like we'll say Silver Springs State Park. So here's the head spring. So it's thinking right now, but it's pulling up the Silver Springs State Park
Yep.
hotspot to see what has been seen there lately.
Okay,
And it's showing the last 30
40.
days, it's showing 45 species were seen in the last 30 days.
okay. And
And we can tap right underneath that blue box where it says 45 species, it says sort, and then we can go to last seen.
yes,
So now we've got like the anhinga was seen today, and we can scroll down through and see all of the birds that were seen from as recently as today, going backwards up to 30 days. It's showing for this.
Yeah, mine's coming the other direction. Okay. Likely.
okay, yeah,
Good question. Very good question.
and you judge that, okay, just going by the, okay, the slots for each month, okay.
And you can pull this information up on the eBird website as well, by going to explore and then type in the hotspots. Or you can go to explore by region and type in the county name, and see all of the main hotspots. And if you tap on each hotspot, it's going to give you all of the birds that have ever been seen there. Like this is telling us 132 different species have been seen there, but 45 have been seen over the last 30 days.
Right,
So, but this is a way that it's, on the app, quick to access rather than going through the website.
good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I'll say one other thing here with the target birds. So if you see here that I have 12 targets, I can tap on the 12 targets and it's going to show me the 12 different birds that it's saying that I haven't seen, but are within 30 miles of me. And so for like the American widgeon, I can tap the name of the bird and it's going to show me where that bird was seen. So I can tap on Alhambra and then I can tap on details. And again, it's going to pull up the information like we just had found. So again, I would sort that by last seen. And you can see what other birds you might see while you're there to see the American widgeon. You can see what other birds would be there.
Cool.
And if you guys haven't used bar charts before, so that's what we're looking at here. So on the bar chart, it's showing you when a bird has been reported and then how often. So if you see the Bonaparte skull, as you see, the chart is pretty much blank. There's only a couple blue spots. So really that Bonaparte skull has only been reported like in February, and just a couple times. And if it was reported more often, like the glossy ibis, you see that blue actually gets taller, but also fills in through the weeks and the months. So it kind of gives you an idea of when to expect birds that are going to be here. So apparently the glossy ibis is possible pretty much all year long in Sumter County at this location. And if you tap on the towards the top, the green button that says 17 miles, if you tap that, it's going to take you to like a Google Maps to give you directions to the place. So are there any other questions? Okay, well, it sounds like we don't have any other questions. So thank you all for joining us. Let me come back. Let me come back to you real quick. Okay. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and learning a little bit more about how to use eBird. And I will say that on behalf of all the birders in the area and everywhere, we appreciate when you use eBird, because you reporting those allows us to learn more information. And when you see something really cool and fantastic, we all like to go and chase what you've seen so that we can all share in the excitement and enjoyment of birding. So thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.